Good afternoon, all, and welcome to Kal-bardr's Corner for this episode of Coffee with Kal. I am Baron Kal-bardr Gellir, companion of the Meridian Cross, companion of the Argent Comet, companion of the Compostela, companion of the Palmer's Lantern and Reaper, coming to you live from the barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. That's becoming a bit of a mouthful. So one thing everybody for tuning in today, this weird afternoon time. I know this is usually a morning show, or I guess a lunchtime show for those of you in the future. We had a bit of some baronial business we had to handle this morning, so we had to do that and do some baronial nominations for our new cornet, our new baronial seat. So we did that this morning at our normal showtime. So coming to you live a few hours after the fact. So. Also, if I look weary and tired, it's because I am. Did not sleep well and had a COVID booster on Friday, and my arm still hurts. So if I yawn or start nodding off during the show, somebody just throw a rock at me or something, we'll pick it back up. But anywho, that's that. Get your boosters, get vaccinated, wear your masks, do all the things. I'm tired of this panini, panorama, whatever we're calling it. Tired of it. All right. All that being said, since today's show is coffee themed, we do, of course, have to talk about our beans. For today's coffee, I have a gift from her ladyship Runa. Apparently, this is a Tennessee original. Apparently, Tennessee has original coffee. So this is the Butter Moon flavor from Ugly Mug. It has the keywords of sweet caramel and roasted nut on it. So, it's gonna like blur out parts of it because of the green screen, but there you go. So thank you for that, Runa. It's amazing. I love it. It's super caramelly and buttery, and it's tasty. And another gift, and this is really funny because the yellow belt. I swear this is actually yellow belt, not a green belt on here. Another gift from my peer, Darth Sabella. We got these for Christmas. She got these for all of her proteges. So I'm using my official protege mug today. So I'm feeling super servicey, I guess. So, but it does have an appropriately large handle. Key thing in a coffee cup, 3-finger handle. It's important because I have giant hands. All right, so coffee, mug. Thank you both. Thank you to Sabella and to Runa for the coffee and the mug. I appreciate all of you. You guys are amazing people. And make sure I'm properly caffeinated. All right. So now that introductions are out of the way, let's get into today's topic. Actually, before I do that, while you're watching, please let me know you're watching over in the comments, wherever it is on your screen. I guess chat's over there for YouTube, comments are down there for Facebook. Let me know who you are, where you're from. Let me know you're watching, and ask questions, talk. So for this show, I chose to do this one solo, even though I had some opinions, and I want to thank the folks who sent some guest ideas in for this show to me. I want to do this one solo, one, because I haven't done one in a while, but also because I have some opinions that I want to talk about that may be unpopular. We'll see. But also because of the weird timing and because of just things going on. I wasn't sure how I would be in this, and didn't want to force that on a guest. So there you go. Oh, welcome, Aslak. Ooh, Highland Grog. Highland Grog. That's good stuff. So today's topic is managing expectations. And this ties right into last week's topic, or last 2 weeks ago topic with His Majesty James about being open and transparent. And it's funny, I accidentally create series just because of topics come up. And so the next show is sunk cost support. And I think one of the things that we can help fix people that are mad about this organization is being more open and transparent and managing our expectations. So, I think that's a thing we can look at. But when I'm talking about managing expectations, it's the idea of, these are all relationships, right? Whether it's, populace to crown, populace to seneschal, seneschal to other officers, crown to officers, whatever relationships are. It's all about relationships, or peer to associates, right? We need to manage expectations of what you, as the person having an expectation, need from the other person. Right? That's the thing. And this is I look at this as a project manager, because that's what I do mundanely. That I try to be very open and transparent with my team about what I expect to achieve as part of the goal. Right? If we're doing XYZ project, I expect reports at these times. I expect this kind of communication. I expect if there's a problem, to tell me this way. I expect, to see this much progress on these certain days, whatever. Like I have expectations. I let them know that so that they can then manage their workload based on the expectations of the person with the expectation. I think in the SCA, we don't do that well. And we see this a lot in offices with new officers, with new deputies. We see it a lot with seneschals, with especially new seneschals with officers. And the communication just isn't there. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's all about communication, really, realistically, is we can manage our expectations via communicating more. That's all it takes, really. Being more open, being more transparent. Most of the complaints that I have about the SCA, about my local group, about my kingdom, about the politics that go on or whatever, is because someone didn't communicate and someone was not open about their expectations. So I'm having to guess what I need to do in that situation. And I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not asking for a full write up or a full, that's better. If you can give me a full write up about what we're doing, that's even better. But it's simple things as just saying, hey, we're having a meeting Saturday, and this is what the meeting is going to be about. That's it, right? It's a short blurb. Hey, meeting Saturday, 2:00, and we're going to be doing this. I need reports from these officers, whatever. And then when you start that meeting, you say that again. Say, hey, we're doing a meeting. I need reports from these officers, and you go through those officers, right? And that's simple. I think in an organization that's been running for 55 years now, 56 years, a lot of people have gotten into just rhythms of they know what's coming next. So there's no need to manage expectations because they already expect the next thing. They already know what's coming next. They already know that when you do A, then B follows, and then C follows. Right? I have to remember to drink coffee. So I realize when I do these shows by myself, I don't ever drink my coffee. I just end up talking for 20 minutes, and then like, oh, oops, I have coffee left. Oh man. And I think that's the trap we get in, is when we as veterans to a thing already have the expectations and forget that somebody else may not have that same expectation, and we don't communicate that other person then has a bad experience because they didn't have the same expectation you did. So, and it's almost, God, I'm gonna call it this, and this may be this may be where it gets involved, but it's almost a bait and switch. Excuse me. When I see it, when we go to demos, we do these demos, we do these things out in public. We talk about the great parts of the SCA and all this medieval stuff we do, and all this fantasy. We have the kings and queens and knights and battles and all this, and that's all technically accurate, but it's realistically an inaccurate representation of the SCA. Right? The SCA is a business. It's a hobby club. Yeah, we do medieval stuff. We do fun medieval things, and we get dressed up in cool costumes, and we have crowns, and we have battles and whatever. Yes, that is all true. But the majority of what we do is business, And a lot of what we do, even recently, and again, I'm speaking from Meridier, speaking from a very specific point here. It may not be as accurate, but there's when we go out in the public and sell this dream and then don't deliver the dream, well, those people, the newcomers that just showed up, were expecting, I'm going to keep using that word, so expectations is the thing, we're expecting glitter and fairies and roses, and got, thumbtacks and hammers. It's not what they expected. Now, the glitter's there, the roses are there, both literally and figuratively, but it's not quite the same. Excuse me. I also had sinus surgery a couple weeks ago still, so I'm still dealing with drainage from that. So if I occasionally have to mute myself so you don't hear me snot, just please ignore that. That's an interesting point, Moon. A lot of people just see the carrot but forget what was involved with the stick. Interesting. I'd like to hear more from you what you mean by that, because I don't disagree with you. Although actually I would probably flip that we end up hearing a lot more about the stick and forgetting the carrot, but I can see the carrot part too. So I can sort of see both sides of that. That's an interesting thought though. So please elaborate on that if you'd like in the comments there. It's such an easy fix. So I guess, and it's me, I guess it's me talking here, but when I go into something, I think James and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Imagine I talked about this a couple weeks ago, that when we enter an organization, we go read the rule book. We go pick up the rules and see what the expectations are, right? So when I show up for a meeting or an event, I already know who the whats are and where the people are, what the event site looks like. And like I do my research, right? Because I'm trying to manage my own expectations. I don't like just showing up and not knowing what I'm walking into. Right? Whether that's an event or a meeting or a class or whatever, I'm going to do the research I can so that I know what to expect. Not everybody does that. That I am in the minority, I think, there. Although in this grouping, I may be in less minority than in mundane life. But I think that's something we don't do enough of. But it's as event stewards, as officers, as crowns, we could do more of that. We could do more to help new people then have better expectations, or to help other officers have better expectations and understand more what we expect out of them. I think doing that little bit extra effort of just saying what you want, even if you're saying the same thing every month or every week or every year, and it's the same blurb, you're being consistent with your expectations so that others can also be consistent with what they're expecting or what they're being expected of. I hope that makes sense. I'm weaving together a couple of thoughts here. Yeah. So that's a great point. We see the destination, but forget not everyone knows the process to make it happen. Right. So we know when we're planning an event, we know we're here and the event's here, and we know what the goal is. We know the goal is to make this event happen. Right. But there's a whole lot between set the date and have an event. Right. There's a whole lot of ground to cover there. And there is a easy, quick, logical way to get from A to B. But there are 100 ways you could do it. And we've seen, 100 different event varieties over the years that can happen. And different event stewards coming in have different things they want to do, and therefore need to explain to their event staff what they expect from them. Because just because you've worked a feast 100 times for other event stewards doesn't mean this event steward's gonna have the same expectations. And vice versa. You as a feast steward need to make sure that your event steward knows what to expect from you, right? And that conversation should happen ahead of time. Before you're going to be a feast steward for that event steward, you should say, hey, this is how I run my feasts. This is what I do. This is how I do it. This is how I buy the stuff, right? Does this work? And it probably will, right? Because if you come to me as a feast steward, as me as an event steward, and say, hey, I'm doing feast, I'm doing it this way, here's the style I'm doing, here's how I run it, here's what I need from you, and we go, awesome, rock on, do your thing, right? Because my job as a project manager has always been to find the best people to do the best jobs, to do the jobs, right? I don't know how to be those things. I don't know how to do all this stuff, but I'll find people who do. And I think if we have those conversations and bring people into the conversations and have open, honest, just, hey, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what's going on, this is how I feel. Emotion is a big part of this. Like, in your professional lives, you don't talk about emotion as much. We should. We are humans. We have emotions. It's a huge part of what we do. But, it's a thing. Especially in this hobby organization, we need to talk about our emotions, talk about our family life and what's going on. Yes. It's all about getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. I like that. Thank you for that, Heslag. And yeah, Aruna puts a great point there. I think there's a disconnect between the way that I, as a planner, expect to interact and the way a lot of others have experienced interaction. You're correct, right? So I'm coming at this as an officer or an event steward or a crown or a charitable baron, whatever. Like pick your position of authority here, right? And I'm coming at that as an event planner, as a person with a project manager background, with event planning background, who is, has very particular expectations. And I get that that's different than probably a lot of people in the SCA have experienced. I know others who have experienced the same thing. I know because I have a lot of friends in the SCA who are event planners and scrum masters and project managers. But the idea is, I'm going to be as open as I would expect others to be. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I want others to understand that's what I'm looking for. And I think that if we can do that, if we can be more open and more honest and more upfront about our expectations, there's gonna be a lot less hurt feelings at the end of the day, right? When we see it so much where people are butthurt, people get upset, people get offended because of a lack of communication. That's all it is. All it is a lack of communication. Yeah. So we see the same thing for peer associates. And I think, yes, you're correct. This is relationships. This is, honestly, let's remove the SCA from the conversation for a second. This also works this is relationships. You and your significant other, you and your best friend, you and your mailman, right? You and the clerk at the bagging your groceries, managing expectations. It's all the same thing. Just yesterday, they asked me if I was okay with all my things going in one bag. And I was like, yes, please, that'd be great. They told me what they were giving me. I agreed to the thing. It's a verbal agreement. We had a verbal contract, so that I knew. So when I picked up my groceries, I knew it was going to be in 2 bags, and one of them was probably going to be heavier because they put a lot of stuff in that one bag. They managed my expectations of that heavy bag, so I knew I knew what I was going to be receiving. So relationships are all the same, and peer associates are a great one. There, I'm going to comment back up here because I'm going to read the rest of it. So as a peer and associate, we see the person who can help progress and see the end goal, but the conversation of how to get from A to B doesn't happen. I think that goes from both sides too, right? So as the associate, we have to be very clear with our peer about what we need from them and what we want and how we want them to tell us things that they hear or that they know or whatever, right? So that it's not criticism. It's we want construction, not degradation. But also our peer needs to tell us what they are going to do for us to get us to peerage, right? Because that's the goal. I know we don't want to talk about that, but the goal of any associate is to become a peer. That's why you're in a peer associate relationship, is to become a peer. There's a whole lot of other things that go into it, and there are benefits of a peer associate relationship. Don't get me wrong. But that's the idea, and we have to articulate that. I think that's a great point, Moon. Thank you for that. And from my dear wife, how you say something is also just as important as what is being said. That's absolutely correct, and that's probably where I fault and fail the most, in my opinion. Is I am a very logic-driven person and very just straightforward to the point. I don't play around. I don't sugarcoat. It's a thing I've heard a lot in business, in especially my hobbies. I forget when I transition back to hobbies that I cannot be as business-like as I do when I'm being a project manager. But that's correct. You have to make sure when you're saying things, you're saying them in a way that the other person doesn't find offensive, and also that they hear it, right? So communication is a huge part of this, right? We're talking about being open, talking about being transparent, and there's something to be said for being completely open and completely transparent, right? So when I am an officer, when I am a crown, when I am a territorial baron, whatever, when I'm a peer and I have associates, I'm going to be very upfront and open and honest in writing about what I am doing, what I'm expecting, and what I need, because that's how I communicate. That doesn't mean everybody's going to hear that, though. So I still need to make sure that I'm following up with the various officers, the various associates, various people that are reporting to me, or vice versa, to make sure that they've heard me correctly, and that there's nothing there's not anything I need to hear from them, or maybe a way they need to hear something different, right? Not everybody works the same way. Not everybody uses Facebook. Not everybody uses Google Docs. Not everybody uses, not everybody has a phone. Like I am on my phone 24/7. It's in my pocket. Well, that's funny. Part of my shield went away. That's funny. But you have to be cognizant of that communication so that we can have that conversation. And yes, Runa, that's my next point. All right. Can we talk about managing expectations of myself? Anyone else expect more of themselves than they do of anyone else? Yeah. All right. So here's the other bit of this conversation that I wanted to have. And thank you, Runa, for getting me there. Part of this, right, when you're managing expectations for others, you also have to know what you can do, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it first, right? So this is RuPaul says it the best way is how can you love another if you don't love yourself first, right? Same idea, right? You have to manage your own expectations of yourself. If you can't do a thing for whatever reason, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever that you've committed to, or that you want to commit to, or that you'd like to commit to, you need to be able to manage that expectation about what you're expecting yourself to deliver at any given time. That's hard. It's really easy to look at somebody else and go, oh, look, there's a fault. I see you only doing X, Y, and Z. You're only doing 50% what I expect. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy to look at somebody else and judge that. It is very difficult for us to turn that back around and look at ourselves and say, oh, you're only doing 50% of what you could be doing, right? And we often crank that number up. Well, we're expecting ourselves to deliver 100 when really we only can be doing 60, maybe 30, 60 on a good day, but 30 most days, right? So that 30 becomes our new 100%. If we happen to get 60, cool. It was a really good day. If we happen to get 50, cool. It's a really good day. If we only do 20, well, okay. Wasn't a bad day. That's 33% or 66% of our 100%. Ooh, that's tough, right? It's tough to look at yourself and see what can I actually accomplish. Right? I know, and I'll call Runa out here for a second because I think it's funny. A conversation her and her peer had was that she was not allowed to take on any more offices until she finished the one she had. And it's not that she's not doing them; she's doing them well. But and she could probably do another one. But that would then cut into a time she has for other stuff, for her own self-care, for her own other stuff, right? So that expectation, her peer gave her a thing of, I will support you doing your current things, and I'll support you in to this line. Past that, I don't think it's a good plan, right? So if you do anything more, you'll be doing it at a deficit, right? So her peer helped her manage the expectation for herself, right? So that's an external source helping us, and that's a thing we have to do. We have to find external validators to help us manage our own expectations of ourselves, and that's weird to think about, but it's true. Right? And it's one of the things that a peer I think is great for is that checkpoint for us to reach out and have those conversations. And to the peers watching, especially those new ones out there, as like looking at you, make sure you have this conversation with your associates, right? Check in. Don't stifle them. Don't stop them from doing stuff. When you see them running ragged, you see them trying to achieve more, the more things you have, the more failure you can then have, which is fine if you manage expectation up front. So if you do more things than you can do, just know some of them are going to fail, and there will be consequences for that. And it's a risk-reward conversation then, right? So it's probably better to err to the side of less failure, in my opinion. But that's again conversation to have. But honestly, it's again. I'll go back to the same word. It's about being honest with yourself, right? I know when I go to an event with all of my partners, I have 2 with chronic physical pain, or really 3 with chronic physical pain, 2 that are worse than the other, and 2 with crippling social anxiety. And I'm the most able-bodied person there, and I've got some weird mental stuff that I'm dealing with. So I have to manage expectations going into the event of what I know I can achieve, because I'm gonna have to help manage the other stuff. I got to make sure the tents are set. I got to make sure the chairs are there. Make sure all the stuff gets where it needs to be, and not to lean too much on any of them, and vice versa, so that we can all get our things done. But it's about having that conversation up front about what we all can achieve with each other and for each other. And I have to be honest with myself about what I can do at that event. So if I'm going to fight and herald and teach a class and try to run games and do all my mundane, like setting up tent stuff, I got a full hand now. It's a lot going on. I need to cut some stuff back so that I'm not killing myself trying to achieve a goal, right? But Moon brings up a great point. Not being honest with ourselves can also be how we become our own worst critic and don't let ourselves work up to and beyond our potential. That's correct, right? So I see this a lot with artisans downing their own work. You see it where it's it's not as good as you think you are because you are your own worst critic, right? That's absolutely correct. And again, and this is why I think really it's a really great point to have a peer, an associate, an external validator, a significant other, somebody outside of yourself to help with these conversations, because it'll allow you to then have an outside view. But make sure when you have the conversation that you're willing to have it. Right? You can't go into that conversation and be hesitant or resistant or argumentative about it. And I'm looking at myself here. I know. I just felt all three of my partners go, "Cal, you hear that?" I'm like, "Yes, I hear it. I understand. Thank you." So when you ask for help, when you ask for that validation or that examination, make sure you're ready to hear it. Oh man. But I think that's just to cycle back to Runa's question here. I think, yeah, we do expect more of ourselves than others, right? Although I think, I'm going to be a little conceited for a second. I expect the same of others that I do of myself. So like I have a bar that I've set for myself. But I expect this level from myself, right? So if I run a meeting, or I do an art project, or I do, if I'm a herald, whatever the thing is, I expect it to be this good. I expect others to hit that same bar. And that is ludicrous. I shouldn't expect that, right? Now, I do. I want others to be as good as I am, right? And I want to help others be as good as I am. I think that's a thing I can help do, right? But when I go into a meeting and the seneschal isn't as organized as I want them to be, or the A&S officer isn't as put together and doesn't have they're doing it manually still, or our marshal shows up an hour late, right? Whatever the thing is. I'm going to be there 20 minutes early if I'm the marshal. I'm going to show up to a meeting with detailed minutes and somebody taking notes and agendas and all this stuff, right? Because that's what I do. I shouldn't expect that from others, right? So yeah, I guess in this case, Runa, I'm sort of doing the opposite. I'm holding others to my same accountability level, and maybe I need to do less, which would then have me holding myself to a higher accountability. But that's true, is that I hold myself accountable way more than I probably need to, or to a higher threshold than I should. And back to the art point from Maslach there, yeah. No matter how good you get at an art, and honestly, this goes with arts, business, organizational stuff. Your art always looks like you did it, and not the beautiful thing that someone else did, right? And it's because we're always going to criticize ourselves. We always see all of the faults in a thing. So when I plan an event, I know all the problems that event had. Well, none of the people saw them, right? Because I and the team that put the event together did a good job of managing the event so that others didn't see the problems, right? That's the goal of an event planner, so that nobody sees the problems. Goal of an artist is to do the thing, and yeah, there's problems, but you fixed them. You got through them. You worked through the issues. You watered down your paint more, whatever. Others didn't see your problems, but you still see them because you know that little smudge is there. You know that tick mark that you had to fix is there. You know the crease and that one seam that's slightly off that nobody else is going to notice because the dress is immaculate. Right? But it's an expectation, right? So from an artisan side, I think the A&S community faults this too, right? And Meridian is a little better than others do. I've seen some other A&S stuff from other kingdoms. We have a grading rubric for our ANS entries that it needs work, but it's at least a good start. That it manages expectations of here's what we're expecting, here's what we're judging on, and as long as the judges follow that rubric, it's a pretty easy process. Like I've done it. It's not as scary as it looked, right? But my guy camera there. Sorry about that. There's the expectation laid out of we're going to judge this, and this to look at. Yeah, every wedding, honestly, every event, every wedding, every convention, every event, or every SCA event, every feast has had something go wrong. If you say you've run an event that nothing went wrong, you just missed it. You didn't know about it. Your event staff did a good job of hiding it from you. All right, here's the question. What advice would you give to a new person to help come up with a list of expectations for looking for or going into a peer-associate relationship? All right, so this is a whole topic, and there's actually some really good TikToks recently about from Toki, and check out my TikTok. I'll try and share a couple of my, I'll do some thoughts over there too. But about what do peers look for and what do associates look for, right? That conversation has been happening on TikTok a lot. I think the biggest thing for me is when you're looking for a peer to just be open about who you are, right? So it's tough, and I've talked to this conversation before, and we've got some other conversations coming up about implied power of peerage. But on the bottom side, on the associate side, or the seeking associate side, seeking a peer, it's tough because you're sort of job interviewing where the job has all the power, right? So if you go into a job interview when you're unemployed, it's really easy to just be like, oh yeah, I can do all this stuff, and oh yeah, and sort of exaggerate who you are or what you're gonna do. And when they offer you the pennies on a dollar pay, you're like, oh yeah, that works, I guess, because it's better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing, and that's the key. So I don't know that I have any specific advice for that, but the advice I have is just be open, be honest about who you are, and if you can't have an open and honest conversation with that person, with that peer, then they're not the right peer for you. And I said that like I said it, yet. Okay. They may be the right peer in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 6 months. They may be the right person for you. But if you can't have an open, honest conversation with them today, then you're not ready for that. You're not ready to have that conversation. You're not ready to take that relationship on. But if it's someone you look up to that does your art, that fights your style, that lives that does the service you want, or has the political swag that you need, whatever thing you're looking for, right? And again, I think that's to cycle back, you have to manage your own expectations. You have to know what you need and what you're looking for. So one of the things I did when I was looking for peers, when I would start having a conversation with a peer about that possibility, I would also go to their other associates and have that conversation. Say, hey, why did you pick, Sir such and such or Dame such and such or whatever? What was your cause? Because I want to hear not only why, but then how has it gone? You've been there a year, you've been there 2 years. How do you feel like on your path? What are you missing? What do you still need? What's your negatives, right? And you're not always going to get a 100% honest answer. You're not. So don't expect that. Take it all with sort of a grain of salt, but it's a conversation to have. And then cycle back to that peer. Ask questions. Let them ask you questions, right? And you have to be open and honest about it, right? Relationships you're in, so your significant others play a huge part in that. Your job, your business stuff, your mundane life stuff, all that plays a huge part. It shouldn't, right? We're in a medieval hobby. It's like the National Guards, weekend a month, 2 weeks a year kind of thing, right? But it's not. It's every day. These relationships, especially peer social relationships, are every day. So you have to have a conversation every day. So if you're just talking about your medieval life, that's not your everyday life. Yeah, there you go. So, conversation with other students, something Sean encourages. His Majesty Sean from Artemisia. I think that it's super important, right, to have this conversation so that you know. Again, it's about managing expectations. So the peer is going to tell you one thing. They're going to give you their peer speech about who they are as a person, and it may be honest, it may be open, it may be accurate. You're going to get an entirely different reaction and relation to that person from their associates, or their past associates, or their friends, or even one that went bad. So when I met with was meeting with some peers before I chose Sabella, one of the peers said, "Hey, I had an associate. This is what happened. You know, it ended. It didn't end poorly, but it ended. You know, here's who it was." And I was like, "Oh, do you mind if I talk to her? You know, I want to have that conversation." And she was okay with that. So I went and had a conversation with this person and said, "Hey, what happened?" And we had a very open, honest conversation about what it was, and you know, and that was, for me, was fine. Like, I understood it, but it was something I kept in my mind, right? But I think had they said no, don't talk to that person, that from right now would have ended that conversation for me, because I'm not that they are then not being open and honest, right? Even if that person would have talked bad about them, they say, "Oh no, they're a horrible person. I never take a bun in the belt. I wouldn't, you know, piss on their grave, blah blah, whatever." I wouldn't have cared about that, right? Because they're being open and honest about them. They were hurt. That person was hurt. You know, that relationship went bad for whatever reason. So, but if that peer had said no, don't talk to them, that'd have been a negative for me, right? But they didn't. So it's the thing. And yeah, Jimmy, you're right. Managing expectations goes both ways. And I've said this. I said this early on, that looking at offices and things like that, it is both ways, right? So as an officer taking on a new office, you need to make sure that you know what to expect, and have the conversation with your boss, right? And boss, whether it's your seneschal or your kingdom office equivalent, whatever. Make sure you have that conversation. Make sure you know what's expected. And if you're that kingdom level officer, you're that boss, make sure you're talking to the folks under you about those expectations, right? When I became Lantern Herald, and then I took on my deputy and took on some other folk, and we took on another office, I was there up front. Hey, this is what we need. What's going on, you know? And you know, we had a conversation. It was very upfront about it. We haven't done a whole lot with it, but you know, they knew what we needed to get done. They knew what to expect, and also I was able to go hands off on it. Same thing in my mundane life as a Scrum Master. I let them know, hey, we're doing these meetings. I expect this kind of reporting. We need this kind of data, you know. And I put it all in writing. I'm a very written person. I like documentation. I steal the quote from my wife of "non scriptum non est," which is if it's not written, it isn't. Which is a whole complaint about the SCA that I have of we follow rules that are not written and don't follow the rules that are written. That's a whole thing. Don't get me started. But yeah. Let's see. Well, that's a good point. If there's no volunteers for an office, it may be time to audit the expectations of that office. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's a thing. We need to audit our offices on a regular basis anyways. And that's because, again, expectations are a thing, right? So as Herald, as Seneschal, as Exchequer, as Marshal, whatever, the job ends up getting expanded and bloated by tradition that then isn't documented. Or we add a thing, and nobody ever reviews the whole of the thing so that people can see what's going on with that. So that's a good point. As we don't have volunteers, we need to look at why. And again, managing expectations, right? So if you don't have volunteers for an office, maybe it's because they're overwhelmed by the office. Maybe they're expecting 26 letters of things, A through Z, and really it's only like A through D. But they've heard these people doing all this other stuff because, you know, Dame such and such was the exchequer for the last 10 years and has been doing it this way. Well, they were also doing other stuff that wasn't really their job because it was easier, you know. or the Herald was also the chronicler. Well, it's not; those two separate offices, right? So having the expectation of what the office does is very important, and making sure you review that with your people is a good idea. So thank you for that. Oh man, I think I'm about talked out, guys. What do you think? Questions? Drop some questions and comments down there. Let me know if anything else comes up. Let's see. Or unrealistic expectations for an office. Brand new level of excitement with 25 years experience in the hobby. Yeah. So you don't expect a 25-year veteran to come into an office with the same excitement that you would a 2-year person or 1-year person. That's not going to happen. But it may. They may surprise you. Somebody who's been sitting dormant for a while gets a new office and then gets excited about it and comes in and just cranks stuff out. Right? It may happen. But again, as Seneschal, as king level officer, making sure you're letting them know the minimum required, the expectations of what you have is important. And as the new officer, making sure you know what you're expected to do and letting your people know what you're going to be doing so they know what to expect from you. Right. And it's about commitment. It's about commitment to each other. So I talk about this in my Scrum stuff. Scrum is software development, project management. I haven't talked about that before. We have stand-up meetings every morning with our whole team. And the purpose of that meeting is not to report to management about what we did. Right? That's what it looks like sometimes, but it's not. The purpose of that meeting is for the team to talk about what they did and what they're doing and committing to each other about what they're going to do. So it's about committing to each other and having an open and honest conversation about what they're expected to do so that others can plan what they're going to do, managing expectations. So if I say, I'm going to do A, okay, well, then the other guy goes, okay, well, when he finishes A, I can do B. So I know I'm not going to do B today because he's working on A today. I'm going to do B tomorrow. So I got to work on something different. I'm going to work on C today, right? So it allows me to manage the expectations of what I know is going to happen with the team and what they're committing to. He may not get it done. He may not get A done today because something blows up on it, but that's the goal, right? So same thing with your event staff, right? Having that conversation about what you're expecting from them, what they're expecting from you is important. Thank you for that. I'm glad people enjoy these conversations. Yeah, I agree. And this is definitely fireside chats. That's the idea of these. So thank you for that. And thank you, Your Majesty. Always a pleasure to see you out there. Again, open, honest conversation is hard. It is always going to be hard, whether it's with a significant other, whether it's with your peer, whether it's with your crown or seneschal, whatever. It's always going to be hard because we've been drilled that we don't have those conversations. We just bottle it up and don't talk about it. Why? Stop that. Have the conversations. Yep. So many relationships are hurt from not having open, honest conversations. And it comes from a fear of hurting the relationship. You're right. It comes from a fear. It's all fear-based. It really is. That's a good point. All right. That is an empty mug. That was a good coffee, too. I love that coffee. It's so good. All right, let me do a couple of we don't talk about Fight Club. There you go. Think of that. All right, do a couple of promotional things here, and then we'll do some wrap-ups. So coming up next on Kal-bardr's Corner, next week, Her Excellency Vermouth will be returning for Road to Retention with Moon Hides the Sun. These shows are great, man. I love Road to Retention. I was super reticent about the show when it started, but I've loved every one of them. So that'll be here 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 to 6. That's next Sunday. And then the following Sunday, the next episode of Coffee with Cal, I'll be joined by Wu. Just has some opinions. So this is talking about sunk cost support or just sunk cost. Excuse me. It's the concept of, how much time have you sunk into the SCA, right? That's the concept and is it worth leaving now? Right? We had a lot of people in the last 2 years that have left or talked about leaving the organization. And Wu has been doing some quarterly support meetings essentially for that to have these conversations because it's important to have the conversation about it. And again, open, honest conversations to see why people are leaving or why people are considering leaving and having those just seeing what's there, and she has basically a support group for it. So looking forward to having her on and sort of just chatting through the negative side of the SCA. Right, I hate being negative. I don't want to talk crap about the SCA, but I think one of the things we can do about this openness and transparency and sort of managing expectations is not to try to hide our skeletons. Right, throw the closet doors open. Let's talk about them so we can deal with them. Right, we can't deal with our problems if we don't talk about them, and that's something the SCA has done for the last 20, 30 years. Is they just went, oh, there's problems, but they're over there. We're just going to shove them into a corner and not discuss them. I'm here to talk about them, folks. So as always, if you got an idea for a topic, you have a hot button thing. If you see something on TikTok, somebody that has an opinion. I've been scrolling TikTok a lot recently, just looking for ideas for different topics. Send it my way. And I'll throw my TikTok handle up here. There you go. At Kal-bardr. Look me up on TikTok. Ping me on there or send him on Facebook or whatever. I would love to have other creators on and sort of have these conversations. So if there's something that somebody's passionate about, ping me, let me know. Also, look us up on Redbubble. Search KK Productions. You can find the Trauma Onion sticker out there made by Lord Elfric. So super excited about that. As always, patreon.com/KK Productions. And you can join the Grand Wall of Patrons. First quarter rewards for 2022 are heading out here. I think I just cut the thing off last night, so I'll be doing those this week, getting those in the mail. Looking forward to that. And as always, because the banner's here, let us do nightly things. That's an important thing. Let us do nightly things. Little hat tip to His Majesty showing there. Folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in. This was a weird time, and I was not expecting folks to be here for this one because anytime I change the schedule, folks don't show up for these. But looking forward to some more shows coming up. We do have one weird one. 2 shows from now, it'll be at a weird time on a Saturday night for me because Australia is in the future. So looking forward to having a weird conversation about some implied power. But again, if you got thoughts for stuff, send them my way. I love you guys in the comments. I love all of you out there, and just these conversations are great. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope to see you next week and every other week following, and we appreciate you out there. But for now, this has been Cal in Kal-bardr's Corner. Have a good day, everybody.